Krug, how was your weekend? How are you?
What's going on, boys? How you guys doing? It was fantastic. Yesterday was my 55th birthday, so I enjoyed that with the family. Good times. Made a nice little dinner and spent some time with my boys and just enjoying some NFL playoffs, man. And I thought it was very, very interesting watching these NFL playoff games as the Niners, try to rebuild and get back in the mix. You better be able to run the ball you better have a good line, and you better be able to run the ball, and you better dominate time of possession, because almost every team that won this weekend did exactly that.
Well, happy double nickel, brother. Vern Glenn tipped me off to your birthday yesterday because Vern Glenn is turning 63 years of age today. So a couple of Bay Area broadcasting legends, Vern Glenn and Larry Krueger. So jump in. I wanted to get your thoughts. Watching ball, the main thing is the AFC teams, Buffalo and Baltimore, just run it down your throat. But Philadelphia and the way they have improved their defense in 1 year's time. Go back to a year ago and what a sieve they had become. They could not tackle. They had issues at both cornerback spots in the middle of their defense, at off-the-ball linebacker. Howie Roseman just keeps building and drafting all these Georgia guys, and now they're growing up before our eyes, and he brings in the old maestro, the great Lord Fangio. Vic Fangio, and what they did to Green Bay, and I'm not sure the quarterback was right, and losing Elton Jenkins at left guard and all the wide receivers, they were a skeleton crew. But as the Niners look to rebuild their defense, Krugs, how did Philadelphia rebuild that defense this year?
Well, the most amazing story in the NFL this year is Zach Bond, who went from very good player at Wisconsin to special teamer with New Orleans to all-pro inside linebacker under Vic Fangio. So, it's amazing what they've gotten this year out of Bond. He had almost 100 tackles. He forced 5 fumbles. He had a pick. He sacked the quarterback. They sent him at the QB as a blitzer. To me, if you said what happened from last year to this year, Fangio, no doubt that some of those young Georgia players grew up, as you kind of referenced there. Jalen Carter is playing at a really, really high level. In this game yesterday, I thought Oren Burks played a tremendous role in this game. I thought he played really well. Nakobe Dean is another guy who got carted off late, but he's come of age this year. They added Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean to the secondary, and Bond has just been a revelation. Nolan Smith, who was not very good last year, has stepped in and had a really nice year sacking the quarterback. He had 2 more yesterday. So, yeah, Philadelphia, Fangio is a fantastic coach, and little tinkering and getting some improvement from within, and they're got the number 1 defense. And if Hurts doesn't blow it, they got a great chance to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, Larry, meant to actually come in with a little happy birthday. I saw Kevin's picture he posted of you back in his football playing days, and That was awesome. Everyone's like, damn, I didn't know Krug was so tall. But looking at yesterday and really this weekend, and we'll get another NFC matchup tonight, but through the 49ers lens, we saw some great performances. We saw some pretty brutal ones. Did this whole data really give you any further insight into how you view the 49ers, Brock Purdy, or Kyle Shanahan?
Well, I just really believe that the Niners have to bolster that offensive line. They have to be able to run the ball. If you look at Jalen Hurts and what he's doing right now, I think that's the template. Not that you can go find Saquon Barkley, but you have Christian McCaffrey, who's a reasonable facsimile. But they plugged in Cam Jurgens for Jason Kelce at center. They brought in a failed tackle in Mekhi Becton and plugged him in at right guard. And between Mailata, who's a monster, Lane Johnson, who's a Hall of Famer, Jurgens, who's 300 pounds, Dickerson, who's a great drive blocker, now you add Becton. They just have a big physical offensive line, and they just ran for 5 yards a carry against Green Bay. So I think that's I realize the 49ers like Brendel, Banks a free agent. They like what they have in Pooney, but they got to upgrade that interior. There's no question. I think they need, a right tackle, a center, maybe even another offensive lineman. If they could add 2 or 3 this offseason, they should. But also, I think, this is one of, if not the greatest running back draft in recent memory. And there's going to be terrific backs all throughout this draft. And I know they got some good ones already, but man, I mean, like give you Detroit. If Detroit didn't have Jahmyr Gibbs, their season would be cooked with no Montgomery. But they have Jahmyr Gibbs, and so they're not only not cooked, they're probably going to the Super Bowl. So, I mean, I know running backs have been devalued, but I think it's time for that to end, and I think the Niners need to pluck themselves at least a running back or 2 this April.
It's hard tonight. The Rams, and they're going to be in Glendale. We'll talk to J.B. Long, the voice of the Rams, about everything this franchise has had to go through the last half week or so, and a lot of them were directly in the line of the fire and had to evacuate their homes. So I don't know how they're going to play that game tonight, but when you look at where the 49ers season went wrong, it was on special teams. In Minnesota with the block punt.
Yep.
In L.A. with a series of special teams gaffes, starting with the infamous 4th and 6 fake we've talked about ad nauseum. So the 49ers did make some changes last week. Obviously, Brian Schneider's gone. Nick Sorensen's not going to be the DC, Larry. I'm wondering if they're going to move him over to the special teams coordinator. They do have to interview some other people this weekend. In fact, yesterday they interviewed the Lions' assistant special teams coordinator, Jet Motkins, for the job. But one thing we've been talking about is Bones Fassel in Dallas, and Mike McCarthy is out as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. That'll be interesting to see where he goes and what the Cowboys do. But every coach on that staff now is a free agent. And I texted Bones Fassel the moment I heard about it, and I said, we need you to come back to the Bay, brother. And he said, you give me the word and I'm there. I'm officially a free agent. If you want to improve your special teams, you hire the best special teams coordinator out there. But Bones is wacky. He likes fakes. He's very aggressive. I think he would help Jake Moody. Do you think there's any way that John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan will reach out to John Bones Fassel? Did it with the Raiders, did it with the Rams. We've seen him in the NFC West, obviously did it with Brandon Aubrey and Dallas and Turpin, their returner. He's the best in football, but he is borderline reckless in some of his calls. Is he too bold of a call for special teams coordinator, Krugs?
No, I don't think so at all. In fact, if there's one theme that the 49ers need to embrace this offseason, it's think outside the box and don't be afraid to make ourselves individually and collectively uncomfortable. So some of that means that, and have a better number 2 quarterback than one you had this year. Make Brock a little uncomfortable. Have a draft consultant. Make Lynch a little uncomfortable. Go for, look at you're going to try to beat Kansas City. Kansas City has Spags as their defensive coordinator. Nick Sorensen's a good guy and a good football coach. He's not Spags. Aim higher. Brian Schneider is a good football coach, was really good in Seattle, but they've got Dave Taub in Kansas City. Aim higher. So, you're the 49ers. You're an iconic franchise. You got a great offensive-minded guy in Kyle Shanahan, but the Kansas City's got the best quarterback, a great offensive mind, and maybe the best defensive coordinator, and maybe the best special teams coordinator. So I don't think you match up there. I do think you need to go for the best people out there, even if they, as you said, are a little wild or maybe don't necessarily align completely with your way of thinking. Go after the best people, because I think it's going to take that to get it done.
Couple more minutes here with Larry Krueger before we get to JB Long. And speaking of JB Long, let's talk about the Rams here for a moment. What are you going to be paying attention to the closest, I should say, tonight for Rams and Vikings, as the Rams are the team that the 49ers are going to have to look to dethrone for the NFC West crown next year?
Well, it's going to be a really interesting game. Sam Darnold, I think, is almost a lock to throw you an interception. He takes chances. He'll throw the 50-50 ball. I think there's a very good chance, if you can get the prop bet on Darnold throwing a pick tonight, I think the odds of it are really, really good. The Rams, I'm very impressed by Les Snead, and I'm very impressed by Chris Shula, their young defensive coordinator. Guys, they just put this thing together really on the fly. And Braden Fisk has given them great play. Byron Young, Kobe Turner, Jared Verse. They've really impacted their defensive line. I mean, they had Aaron Donald. They ushered him into retirement, and they've rebuilt the thing already, it seems. So I would see how much pressure can the Rams defensive front get on Sam Darnold. And to me, that's the Rams' chance. I don't give the Rams. It's a neutral site. I like the Vikings. I think they're a better team, better. But I'll say this: Stafford is not going to shrink in the moment. McVay is not going to shrink in the moment. And the Rams have a lot of guys on that roster that have won before, so they're going to fire. And if Sam Darnold throws them a couple picks, then the Rams could pull the upset. I think it's possible, but I'll lean towards the Vikings tonight. You're
harsh on Sam. He threw 12. This year. He played exceedingly well. The last game, obviously, against the Lions, the Sunday nighter game, 272. I don't know if he was seeing ghosts, but he was not seeing open receivers. He struggled, especially in the low red zone. Aaron Glenn of the Lions went at him aggressively and blitzed him. And in the low red zone, they played more coverage, and they got in there 4 times, and they turned it over on downs twice and 2 times kicked field goals. Just not good enough. So my question is, and we know him well because he was a backup quarterback here last year. I watched all the practice. I love Sam Darnold. We're talking about Brock making a huge jump in salary from one year to the next. Sam got a $10 million deal from Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah in Minnesota. But how big is this game for him? He's never played in the playoff game before in his life. Last week was like a playoff game, and that's the worst game he's played, certainly as a Viking. I think going back even to when he was a Panther, Krug. So how big is this game for the future of Sam Darnold tonight?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, if he plays well, they will trade J.J. McCarthy, and they will give him that starting job. And if he plays poorly, they'll go back to J.J. McCarthy and probably allow Sam to move on in the offseason somewhere else. So I think this is a big one for Sam. He's got 12 picks on the year. He's got 3 fumbles. That's kind of the only real downside for Sam. He's got a huge arm, but if you speed him up, he will take some chances with the ball. To me, though, it's get the ball to Jefferson. I mean, you've got Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson, Naylor, Aaron Jones. That's a tremendous group of weapons. Get the ball out of your hand. Don't hold it. Get it out. If he gets it out quickly to his weapons, I don't think Minnesota is going to lose this game. But Sam's the equalizer. If he does, have 2 interceptions and a fumble, it's the NFL. You only get 10 possessions, and you could lose the game. But huge game for Darnold to kind of show that what we saw in the regular season, 35 touchdowns, 12 picks, the 100+ rating, that's legit.
Krug, you're the best. We appreciate your time as always. Go enjoy the birthday leftovers if you have any remaining, and we'll do this again soon. Be tuning in to Niners Nightly, and always great catching up.
Awesome, guys. And tonight on Niners Nightly, we're going to take phone calls. We're going to talk about the playoff games from the weekend and what we learned and what that means for the Niners on the rebuild. So that coming up tonight at 6.
415-808-5627, the number to talk to Krug at 6. We appreciate you, man.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
Happy birthday!